Greetings, people of Earth. Welcome back. My name is Jax, and today we are talking about chapter 17 of the Tao Te Ching, which this translation has called the natural order. So, I'm actually going to do something a little bit different in this video. I'm going to read the verse, then I'm going to talk about it, and at the very end, I will read it again. So hopefully you might be able to distinguish some things that you didn't distinguish on the first round. Okay, so the natural order. The highest rank of ruler transcends recognition. The next rank is cherished and celebrated. The next is feared. The next is held in contempt. If the ruler himself has no faith, then the people will have no faith in him. If a ruler is at ease with himself, he chooses his orders carefully. Achievement and success will follow, and the people will accept the natural order. So, this is all about leadership and all about how you handle leadership, what you are looking for in your leader. We, at any moment in our life, can become a leader in some way. You know, you can become a parent, you can be a teacher, you can be a coach. There are so many avenues where you become a leader at work, you become a manager. Leadership is sort of a natural thing in human culture. Like, we naturally sort of fall into these patterns and these rhythms where somebody has to make the final decision of what you do as a group, as a tribe, as a culture. And so learning a little bit and understanding a little bit more about leadership is very important. And I think this is a really good chapter. So that's my little intro. The first thing I want to talk about is the first line of this is the highest rank of ruler transcends recognition. This is often translated to something along the lines of like, the best leaders are never known, which I think is pretty true. If you think about all of the famous and prestigious leaders in the world, historical, living currently, one of the things they have in common is that they're not usually great people. Because they're so famous and they're so prestigious and they have this reputation, they often have quite a lot of like sort of black marks on them. You can think of almost any historical leader that has, you know, a bit of a gray past, a bit of controversy, a bit of, well, he was like this or she was really bad or whatever. And so the really truly best leaders never achieve that much fame and notoriety. They don't tend to have this incredible cult of personality around them. And I think of like just people I know, like my grandparents, great-grandparents, like the stories I've heard of their sort of leadership and the way they live their lives and things like that. And I think that's true because if you get to a certain level of fame and power, it might corrupt you a little bit, but it also brings everything else to the surface. And I don't think you tend to find like a leader that we know historically that was an incredible leader, that was just an amazing person, you know? Like, usually these people are pretty power hungry. In order to get to that level of success, they have to be a bit sociopathic. You know, they say that a lot of the US presidents have had like sociopathic tendencies and things like that. So that's kind of what I think of, and I think that's interesting. But it's also the idea that the greatest leaders don't need recognition. You know, they transcend recognition. They don't need it. They realize like, oh, this is surface level. This is irrelevant to my life and to who I am. And so oftentimes you find that the greatest leaders are like that. The next leaders are cherished and celebrated. These can be historical figures that you have a really good reputation for. You know, they're cherished and they're celebrated, they're loved, they're revered, they're looked at with just good opinion. Those are pretty rare. It's kind of hard to think of a character who has that, you know. I'm British, and so when I think of like great leaders, I think of Winston Churchill. However, Indian famine and sort of the hard decisions he made in World War II and some of the very racist decisions he made throughout his life. So no figure is really immune from some of this criticism and things like that. I think the only person that I can really think of that had a really good reputation and record was probably Queen Elizabeth. There is very little you can say about her, I think, that is very controversial, but I'm sure it's YouTube, so the comments will put me straight and say, no, she did this, or she was horrible, or whatever. So there you go. The next line is, the next is feared. So leaders that are feared. We can think of lots of leaders that are feared or were feared. That isn't hard. And held in contempt, again, you can kind of, a bunch of names come to mind. And so then it goes on to talk about the actual qualities of leadership. So if the ruler has no faith, then people will have no faith in him. And I don't think that has to be spiritual. I think that can be, if the leader doesn't have a vision, then people don't feel like he has a vision, It's pretty easy like that. Sorry, the lighting is just a bit aggressive. Anyway, so he chooses his orders carefully. And I think this goes back to good quality of leadership, is that you have to really understand the responsibility that you hold. If you are a leader in something, sorry, I'm going to just try and, there we go. If you are a leader in something, you really have to understand that being able to make those decisions puts you in a huge point of responsibility, and people are trusting you, people are depending on you, and those are very scary concepts. Some of us really shy away from public speaking and the idea of leadership because we don't want that. We don't want that kind of heat. We don't want that responsibility. It's frightening, but oftentimes the best leaders are ones who don't want that power to begin with. A lot of times a leader that must be in that position is much better than a leader that wants to be in that position. Because if you want that power, odds are you want it for a specific reason, and that is going to sort of corrupt you. So I want to talk about the last line of this translation, because the last line of this translation is a little bit different than how I have read this in many other translations. So it says, achievement and success will follow, and the people will accept the natural order. This line is often translated as achievement and success will follow, and the people will think they did it themselves. Because a good leader really doesn't care about credit or recognition. It goes back to the first line. It kind of connects and sort of couples and cycles almost. So I'm not sure I really like this last line translation. I prefer when it says achievement and success will follow and the people think that they did it themselves. I think that's a better line because a true leader allows recognition to be given out equally and given out to everybody involved, because the leader understands that they just directed whatever happened. They didn't actually, they might have been on the ground, fighting in the trenches, but it took everybody's effort to achieve whatever was achieved. Like the moon landing, nobody thinks that the director of NASA at the time of the moon landing was the sole person who did everything. And nobody thinks that like Buzz Aldrin or Neil Armstrong were the sole executors of the plan or whatever. It took an entire group of people, of scientists, to be able to achieve this like huge feat. And like we do remember Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin as like the guys, but it's not, we understand that it was everybody else involved. And the true leader of that whole situation probably went unrecognized. The guy who directed, or the girl who directed everything, went with like serious non-recognition and probably didn't really care because they achieved what they set out to do. So essentially what this verse means for our society as a whole is that we need to be able to recognize true leadership and support it and attempt to encourage it. And we also need to do it in our own lives, in our own communities. Don't seek recognition for the sake of recognition. Don't seek sort of surface level achievement. Try and strive for the long-term success and the long-term growth. And as a whole, we definitely need to stop supporting ego, and we need to stop supporting these sociopaths running our world, because the more we support actions we don't agree with, the more those actions will occur, and then we wake up 10 years from now and we don't have any freedom, and our children and grandchildren are stuck with a very difficult future. So it is this verse is very important. Leadership is such an important part of human society, and whether you live in a totalitarian state or a quote unquote free democracy, you have an incredible amount of power in choosing and supporting your leaders. So that's what I would say in the macro level. In the micro level, I think it's just very important to be aware of people in your life who are good leaders, who you trust. Support them, work hard for them, work hard with yourself, and try and encourage some of that leadership quality inside yourself as well. Ask yourself what the goal of whatever you're trying to achieve is, and where you can be a good leader in this, whether it's volunteering, coaching, teaching, parenting, working in a team on a specific project at your work, whatever it may be. Leadership is a very important quality, but just don't bring the ego into it, because ego is a very corrosive aspect of humanity, and it's always got to be kept in check. It keeps us on balance. So I think, is there anything else I want to say about this? Leadership, being a good leader, focusing on what matters, achieving a goal, not worrying about what other people will think or do. I think that's about it, guys, but thank you so much for watching. I'll read this again, of course. Comments down below, as always. I'd love to read them. So thank you guys for watching, and as always, I will talk to you guys tomorrow. The natural order. The highest rank of ruler transcends recognition. The next rank is cherished and celebrated. The next is feared. The next is held in contempt. If the ruler himself has no faith, then the people will have no faith in him. If a ruler is at ease with himself, he chooses his orders carefully. Achievement and success will follow, and the people will accept the natural order.